Who is the most famous person you've personally met? I sold Martin Sheen a car. He asked that I deliver the car on my day off to his house. The sales manager told him I was dating a hot little thing. Martin said I could bring her to the drop-off and he would give us a tour of Malibu. We spent the day hanging out with Mr. Sheen at his house, getting a personal tour of Malibu. Martin told me that I was too good to be selling cars. I then stopped selling cars and became a very successful kitchen designer. I still have his cell phone number in my phone, though I'm too afraid to call him. Call him. He's that nice. I spent a day with him as we were premiering his film The Way, and we were about 30 minutes late getting the film on screen. He wouldn't go in until everyone who wanted to say hi, talk with him, and get a photo had their chance. When they tried to rush him, he said, "Oh PSH, you won't start without me." He was the nicest, and I'm sure he'd love hearing from you. The Way is probably one of the best under-the-radar films I've ever seen. It inspired us to walk the Camino. Camino Francis. Basically the route Sheen took. However, due to bad weather we didn't take the route the first day that Sheen's son died on. We walked the 500 miles in about 34 days. I found this website the most useful in terms of planning. Depending on when you go, pre-book at least the first few nights. We were a late 50s couple and preferred to stay in en-suite rooms and ended up booking the entire trip about a week in. They are not as plentiful as hostel beds. Make sure you are prepared for consecutive long days of walking. 12 miles in a day isn't too bad. 10 in a row is where the challenge lies. I recommend hiking poles. It was a fantastic experience. I am hoping to do Portuguese at some point. Ben Stiller. My husband had a gig, and his friend, who I later learned was Chris Abbott, was waiting for someone to arrive. I offered to stay back, and then Ben joined us. "Hi, I'm Ben." We had another round on him and chatted about movie scripts. He asked about my interests, and was really pleasant. I felt so very out of my element and didn't know anyone else, so I asked if I could hang around them. Ben put his arms around my shoulders and said, "You're part of the crew, now." Good dude. I like him. Brave man. Putting his arm around the armpitofsitan. I see tons of celebrities in New Orleans. Usually I just make note of it and continue on my way, but a couple of times I've talked them. 1. Saw Walton Goggins at a dive bar on Frenchman St. I loved him on Justified, so I went up to him and said something like, "I just had to say hello and tell you how much I appreciate Justified," and he said, "Thank you so much, it's nice to meet you, these are my friends Jason and Brad," and that's when I realized it was Brad Pitt. I shook hands and said, "Have a great night." 2. I was at GNC and John Goodman was there buying some stuff. We were in line together and the clerk kept asking him if he wanted to add this or join some club, and he was like, no thanks, and he kinda looked at me and I said, "Fuck it dude, let's go bowling," and he laughed this big laugh and said, "Ha ha ha, fuck it dude. Let's go bowling. I love that. Ha ha ha." Then he shook my hand and told me to have a great day. Ha ha ha, you probably made Goggins' day. I can hear him giving Brad Pitt shit all night that he got recognized first. Ha 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 ha. Fuck, I didn't even think about that. I bet he absolutely did. I imagine celebrities like John Goodman have no idea that certain roles or even specific lines will become insanely popular. To them it could feel like a small or forgettable role that they'd rather not do again. But they realize all it takes to totally wow a fan is to do the line, so they do it and walk away. Poor Mila Kunis just gets shut up. Meg yelled at her all the time. Famous is quite a bit different from prominent. I've met several Nobel Prize winners, Leon Letterman, Linus Pauling, and scientists like Richard Leakey, Don Johansson, and Jane Goodall. Peter O'Toole sat down next to me at a lecture, on the topic of Lawrence of Arabia, no less. He gave me a rakish smile, putting his finger to his lips as he saw I clearly recognized him and was the most well-dressed person I've ever seen. I ran into Eric Idle on a street in Chicago. And I shared an elevator ride with Tony Bourdain. I said hello, but these were not people I was introduced to, but simply ran into. My most famous, Muhammad Ali, was literally the most famous person in the world at one point. But I would trade that very short encounter for 1 minute with Jane Goodall or Sir David Attenborough. I met Sir David Attenborough and he is every bit as amazing in person as you would expect. Had a photograph taken with Joe Frazier. He tapped his fist against my 30-inch waist and said, "Hey man, you been working out?" I still have the Polaroid. What an ego boost, huh? I had a similar experience when I first met Richard Williams. As a tennis geek, I ran up to him and said, "Thank you for what you have done for our sport. I can't tell you how proud I am of you and those girls." And this was early on, when they only had a few Grand Slams between them. He said, "Thanks young man, I was 45 at the time, lol." He then grabbed my bicep and said, "Wow, look at those guns." I later had the privilege of sitting next to him a few years later as we watched Venus's upcoming opponent. We talked about black struggles, religion, politics, and occasionally tennis, lol. Love this. On my 13th birthday I was at a nice restaurant in Toronto and Michael Imperioli was in the corner having a brandy and reading through some papers. I'd like to think it was a season 5 script. Anyway, I spotted him and said to my dad, "Holy shit, that's Christopher." My dad said, "Do you want to send him a drink?" I didn't know this was a thing you could do and I thought it was baller, so we sent him a top shelf brandy. He came over to our table, said, "Hey, I heard it's your birthday. Did you send me this?" I said yeah, and he thanked me for the drink and shook my hand. So cool of him, and I can't be sure, but I think he threw in a little Christopher just to make my day. Absolute legend. Christopher. She was a hoo-ah. I met Bernie Mac through my work in a capacity that I had 2 45-minute conversations with him one-on-one in a small room. Dude told me his entire life story, then asked me about mine, then said he wanted to work my hobby into one of his bits. He was absolutely 100% genuine great guy, and I was very sad when he passed. That's so cool. He seems like one of the funniest and coolest guys to ever live. What's the hobby he wanted to do a bit about? I'd say nose picking, but I guess he went pro. Paul Newman, at a deli in my hometown. I was a teenager and he was filming a movie in my neighborhood. My grandmother spotted him going into the deli as we were driving by. She insisted we go in and meet him. I wanted to curl up and die, but I did it anyway because, well, my grandma wanted to. I have to say that he was very gracious about it, and that his eyes were unbelievably blue. I remember those eyes more than anything. My mother-in-law met him while he was filming near Newport, Oregon. She asked for his autograph and he said, "Miss, I'll babysit your kids, but I won't give you my autograph." I used to work in Westport, CT where he lived. I'm not good at recognizing celebrities, but he is instantly recognizable. I'd see him everywhere. My husband, my toddler and I were eating dinner at a restaurant and he and his family were at the next table. His daughter noticed my daughter and we exchanged some pleasantries about raising kids. I've cooked for Paul a few times at a little cafe in CT. He was great and very complimentary and humble. Guy Fieri. He came into the Chipotle I worked at to get food for his dad, I think. Maybe Mom IDK. It's been years, and he was just so cool and humble. When he finished paying I told him to have a good time in Flavor Town and he just laughed. My friend and I met guy at a restaurant, not one of his, in Vegas, just sitting at the casino bar. We were just pre-funking with some drinks and he says, "You guys getting food?" We're like, "Are you working here, man?" He says that the best wings in Vegas were at this little casino bar on Fremont Street. He's ordered some and he'd like us each to try one. I'm down for wings, so we agree. They were Thai sweet and spicy flavored with a chili garlic dipping sauce. They were just amazing. I ordered my own plate. $6 for 6 at happy hour too. They were great wings, yet sadly the bar no longer serves food. I am still full of sadness about this. Robin Williams. Same. Except that I wouldn't say he and I actually introduced ourselves to each other. He just gave me a book recommendation at a bookstore one day. I asked him if it was any good and he told me it was amazing. He was right, of course. The book was Midnight's Children by Salman Rushdie. An acquaintance here in St. Louis told a story when Robin passed. Apparently one day Robin came into the book/magazine store where the guy was working and just started doing an improv bit back and forth with the guy. Said he was the nicest dude in the world. I would love to have met him. His passing was definitely one that impacted me greatly. All of us, my friend. I said it when he died and I'll say it again. The world became significantly grayer with his passing. In 2008 I met Sean Penn in Detroit, Michigan. I was at a Red Wings hockey game with my mom. He brushed past me and I said, to my mom, "I think that was Sean Penn." She said, "Really? Go and see. I'll grab our seats." As the arena is just a giant circle, I went the opposite direction and he almost walked into me. I said, "Mr. Penn, I just wanted to say I am a big fan of yours." He looked flustered and said, "Fuck off, kid." He then walked away from me. I was shocked. I went and found our seats. I sat down with a stunned look and my mom asked, based on my look, how it went. I told her what he said and where I think he's sitting. She stood up and looked at his section. She then said, "That little shit. Looks like he's going bald anyway." Then she turned around and yelled, "Hey! Look! It's Sean Penn." She then sat back down and everyone started freaking out. He left not long after. The best part about the story is that my mom is a quiet, reserved woman that never swears. It was just her way of getting a jab back at him. Please like and subscribe for more daily content.